There is a darkness in the human mind that few dare to face. It is not the darkness of evil, which we understand as deliberate cruelty or malice, but a far more insidious shadow, the darkness of stupidity. Dietrich Bonhoeffer, a man who stood against one of the most terrifying regimes in history, uncovered a truth so unsettling that it has been largely ignored, denied, or simply feared. Stupidity is not mere ignorance or a lack of intelligence. It is a force, a terrifying force, that defies logic, reason, and morality itself. This is the terrifying theory of stupidity you were never meant to hear. Dietrich Bonhoeffer was a German theologian, pastor, and philosopher who became a symbol of resistance against the horrors of Nazism. He was not just a man of faith, but a thinker deeply engaged with the social and political realities of his time. His writings reveal a mind that grappled with profound questions of good and evil, truth and deception, courage and cowardice. Bonhoeffer lived in a time when the very foundations of reason, justice, and humanity were under attack. His reflections on stupidity arise from this context, a world where millions were swept into catastrophic destruction, not merely because of evil intent, but often because of collective blindness, willful ignorance, and the refusal to confront uncomfortable truths. Bonhoeffer did not write a formal theory in the way we might expect from philosophers or scientists, but through his reflections, he revealed a chilling insight into the nature of stupidity. He understood stupidity as an active, dangerous force, not just a passive lack of knowledge or intelligence, but a willful refusal to see reality as it is. Stupidity, in this sense, is terrifying because it cannot be fought with reason. Unlike evil, which can be confronted by exposing its motives and consequences, stupidity thrives in spite of facts, logic, and clear evidence. It blinds people to the truth and disables the ability to respond wisely. Bonhoeffer's insight forces us to reconsider many assumptions about human nature. We like to believe that education, facts, and rational debate can overcome ignorance and error. But what if stupidity is a different kind of beast, one that resists knowledge and thrives on denial? Philosophy has long examined human reason and its limits. Since the time of Socrates, who humbly declared, "I know that I know nothing," we have acknowledged that our knowledge is always partial, limited, and fragile. Enlightenment thinkers celebrated reason as the pathway to progress and freedom, but also warned of the dangers of blind faith in human intellect alone. Bonhoeffer's theory challenges us to face the paradox of stupidity. It is a force that makes reason powerless. It is not stupidity in the simplistic sense of lacking knowledge. It is a stubborn, active refusal to engage with reality. It thrives in social environments where critical thinking is abandoned, where emotion replaces evidence, and where ideology blinds. This paradox is terrifying because it means the tools we rely on, education, dialogue, logic, may not be enough. The enemy is not just ignorance, but a willful blindness that refuses to listen or learn. Ignorance has been a central theme in philosophy. Plato described ignorance as the root of human suffering, yet he also recognized the difficulty of overcoming it. The allegory of the cave shows prisoners trapped in shadows, unable to see the truth even when it is revealed. Kant emphasized that human understanding is bounded by the limits of experience, and that we must always be cautious about claims of absolute knowledge. Carl Jung later explored the unconscious, showing that much of our behavior is driven by forces beyond conscious reason. In this tradition, Bonhoeffer's theory can be seen as a modern confrontation with a deeply rooted human challenge: the resistance to truth, not because it is absent, but because it is inconvenient or threatening. Beyond the intellectual, Bonhoeffer saw stupidity as a moral failure. The Bible repeatedly contrasts wisdom and folly. Proverbs 1:7 declares, "The fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge, but fools despise wisdom and instruction." This ancient wisdom points to stupidity not only as ignorance, but as a rejection of humility, reverence, and moral responsibility. Bonhoeffer's experience in Nazi Germany revealed how entire societies can fall prey to stupidity. It is not always hatred or evil intent that drives atrocities, but the collective failure to think critically, to question propaganda, and to resist blind obedience. This raises urgent questions for us today. How do we recognize when stupidity has taken hold in our societies? How do we avoid becoming complicit in a culture of denial and superficial thinking because it shakes the foundations of optimism about human progress? We like to believe that knowledge and reason will ultimately prevail, that education and enlightenment will overcome darkness. But Bonhoeffer's terrifying theory warns that stupidity is a stubborn, self-reinforcing force that resists change. It spreads like a virus through communities, fueled by fear, pride, and unwillingness to face uncomfortable truths. This is the kind of blindness that allows injustice to flourish, that permits lies to become accepted truths, and that ultimately endangers freedom and humanity itself. The terrifying theory of stupidity is not just about societies or history. It is about each of us. How often do we see ourselves resisting facts that challenge our beliefs? How often do we deny uncomfortable realities because they threaten our identity or pride? This theory invites deep personal reflection. Stupidity is not simply the other. It lives inside all of us, in our biases, blind spots, and moments of willful ignorance. The spiritual traditions echo this. For the wisdom of this world is foolishness with God. 1 Corinthians 3:19. True wisdom requires humility, the courage to confront one's own limitations and the grace to seek truth beyond comfort. If this truth unsettles you, it is because it touches something real and urgent inside us. But do not turn away. The first step in overcoming this force is awareness, recognizing the power of stupidity in ourselves and in the world. Reflect. In what ways am I allowing this force to grow in my mind, in my relationships, in my community? What fears or pride keep me from facing the truth? If you are ready to confront this terrifying theory and resist the blindness it creates, begin by sharing your thoughts below. How do you perceive the force of stupidity in your life and society? Let's start a conversation, deepen our understanding, and commit to the difficult path of truth and wisdom together. This is only the beginning. In the next part, we will explore how this force of stupidity operates in society and politics, why it is so difficult to combat, and what that means for us as individuals and communities. Stay with me because understanding this theory fully is the first step towards resisting its power. In the vast theater of human history, stupidity often plays a tragic role far greater than mere ignorance or error. Dietrich Bonhoeffer recognized this grim reality during one of the darkest chapters of the 20th century. Stupidity, he observed, is not an individual failing alone, but a collective force that can shape societies, politics, and the fate of nations. It is a silent but powerful current beneath the surface of mass movements, ideologies, and systems of oppression. To truly understand this terrifying theory, we must confront how stupidity operates socially and politically, not as isolated folly, but as a contagious phenomenon that resists reason and corrodes the very fabric of democracy and freedom. Bonhoeffer's reflections arose amidst the rise of totalitarianism, where entire populations were swept into destructive ideologies not always because of hatred, but through the fog of collective blindness. The danger of stupidity lies in its capacity to seduce masses into surrendering critical thought, replacing reason with dogma, and transforming complex realities into simple, dangerous slogans. It thrives where propaganda manipulates emotion and where questioning is punished. When stupidity dominates the public sphere, it undermines dialogue, corrodes truth, and makes society vulnerable to manipulation and injustice. Philosophers like Hannah Arendt explored related themes in her concept of the banality of evil, where ordinary people commit atrocities not out of monstrous intent, but through thoughtlessness and conformity. Bonhoeffer's notion of stupidity resonates with this. The tragedy is not only evil, but the dullness of mind that allows evil to go unchallenged. The power of stupidity is that it neutralizes resistance by dulling awareness and critical engagement. This is why it cannot be defeated simply by presenting facts or logical arguments. It operates beneath the surface of conscious thought. Carl Jung's idea of the shadow also illuminates this dynamic. The shadow represents the unconscious parts of the psyche that people deny or repress. Stupidity, in its social form, can be seen as a collective shadow, aspects of society that refuse to face uncomfortable truths about itself. The refusal to acknowledge these shadows feeds into denial and self-deception, creating fertile ground for social decay. Jordan Peterson emphasizes the importance of truth as the antidote to chaos and suffering. Yet when stupidity dominates, truth becomes irrelevant or dangerous. Lies, misinformation, and simplistic narratives replace complex reality. The result is a fragmented society where trust erodes, polarization deepens, and manipulation flourishes. Biblical wisdom offers sobering insights into this social blindness. The book of Proverbs contrasts wisdom with folly, urging communities to seek understanding and reject the allure of foolishness. Wisdom will save you from the ways of wicked men, from men whose words are perverse. Proverbs 2:12. This ancient guidance reminds us that social stupidity is not just ignorance but a moral failure, a rejection of the discipline and humility needed for true knowledge. In today's world, the terrors of social stupidity are visible in the rise of populism, misinformation, and the erosion of democratic values. Social media amplifies emotional reactions over reasoned debate, creating echo chambers that reinforce biases and deepen division. The terrifying theory warns us that when societies stop valuing truth and critical thinking, they become vulnerable to collapse from within. But this social force is not inevitable. Awareness and courage are essential to resisting the spread of stupidity in communities. Education that fosters critical thinking, empathy, and intellectual humility can counteract the forces of denial and blind obedience. Yet, resistance requires more than knowledge. It demands moral courage to stand against popular opinion and speak uncomfortable truths. The struggle against social stupidity is a battle for the soul of society. It challenges individuals to break free from conformity, to question prevailing narratives, and to embrace complexity over simplicity. It calls for a recommitment to the values of reason, dialogue, and shared responsibility. Ultimately, the social dimension of stupidity forces us to recognize that the health of a society depends on the vigilance of its members. When people abdicate their responsibility to think deeply and act wisely, the consequences ripple through generations. Bonhoeffer's reflections remind us that resisting this force is not optional. It is a moral imperative. This understanding challenges each of us. Are we passive spectators allowing the dullness of thought to spread? Or are we active participants, defending the light of reason and truth? The answer shapes the future of our communities, our nations, and the world. The terrifying theory of stupidity does not end at the borders of society. It penetrates deeply into the human soul. The greatest battle is often the one fought within ourselves. Dietrich Bonhoeffer's insight reveals a sobering truth. Stupidity is not only a social or political force, it is also an internal enemy, residing in the ego, the pride, and the willful ignorance each of us carries. To truly confront this force, we must turn the lens inward and face the shadows we often deny. At its core, stupidity within us manifests as a refusal to see reality clearly, especially when truth challenges our self-image or comfort zones. It is the stubborn insistence on false beliefs, the avoidance of uncomfortable facts, and the clinging to illusions that shield us from pain or responsibility. This internal stupidity is far more dangerous than mere ignorance because it is a conscious or unconscious act of resistance against growth and wisdom. Philosopher Carl Jung taught that the path to wholeness requires confronting the shadow, the parts of ourselves we reject or refuse to acknowledge. The shadow is the repository of all that is hidden, denied, or suppressed within the psyche. Stupidity, when internalized, is part of this shadow. It blinds us to our flaws, limits our capacity for empathy, and imprisons us in repetitive patterns of thought and behavior. Only by bringing these dark corners into the light of conscious awareness can we begin to transform them. Humility becomes the weapon against this internal force. The ancient wisdom of Proverbs reminds us, when pride comes, then comes disgrace, but with humility comes wisdom. Proverbs 11:2. Humility opens the door to learning and change. It softens the heart and mind, allowing us to question our assumptions and embrace truth, even when it is difficult or painful. Yet, overcoming internal stupidity is no simple task. It demands courage to face one's own weaknesses, biases, and fears. It requires patience with oneself and a commitment to the lifelong journey of self-examination. The process is uncomfortable because it calls for dismantling ego defenses and relinquishing illusions that have long offered a false sense of security. This inner work is not only psychological but deeply spiritual. The biblical tradition frames wisdom as a gift of grace that transforms the heart and mind. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom, Proverbs 9:10, reminds us that true understanding begins with reverence, a recognition of our limits, and a surrender to divine truth. Jordan Peterson often speaks of the necessity of confronting chaos to create order in one's life. Internal stupidity represents a form of chaos, confusion, denial, and disorder within the self. Facing it means embracing responsibility, seeking truth relentlessly, and cultivating virtues that strengthen character. The internal struggle against stupidity shapes our capacity to live authentically and meaningfully. When we fail to face our internal shadows, we become vulnerable to manipulation, destructive habits, and moral failure. Conversely, those who dare to confront their blindness open themselves to transformation, freedom, and wisdom. This journey is deeply personal but also universal. Every individual carries the potential for both wisdom and folly. Recognizing and resisting internal stupidity is the foundation for resisting it in the world. Only through inner clarity can we contribute to social healing and justice. Thus, the terrifying theory of stupidity is a call to profound self-awareness. It challenges us to ask, in what ways am I blinded by my own ego? Where am I clinging to falsehoods that hinder my growth? What fears keep me from seeking the hard truths about myself? The path forward demands humility, courage, and faith. It is the courageous act of turning inward, embracing discomfort and seeking truth beyond appearances. Only then can we dismantle the internal barriers that stupidity erects and step into the fullness of wisdom. If this resonates with you, take a moment to reflect honestly. What illusions am I holding on to? Where have I avoided the painful work of self-examination? Share your thoughts or experiences below and commit to the brave journey of inner transformation. Remember, wisdom begins with the courage to see yourself clearly. In a world often overwhelmed by confusion, denial, and the relentless tide of ignorance, the terrifying theory of stupidity demands a profound response. To live wisely is to live deliberately, choosing truth even when it is uncomfortable, standing firm when the masses sway toward blindness, and carrying the courage to resist the seductive ease of ignorance. Dietrich Bonhoeffer's insight calls us to embody this courage, not only as individuals but as guardians of a collective conscience. Living in the light of truth is a price few willingly pay. It means confronting inconvenient realities about ourselves and the world, rejecting the soothing lies that dull our senses, and refusing to capitulate to the forces that prefer darkness. This path is not easy. It is fraught with isolation, misunderstanding, and the temptation to retreat into complacency. Yet it is the only way to preserve the dignity of the human spirit and the integrity of society. Philosophy teaches us that the pursuit of truth is the highest calling of the mind and soul. It requires discipline, humility, and relentless questioning. Jordan Peterson reminds us that chaos is the price of growth, and that meaning is found in the balance between order and chaos. To live truthfully is to engage in this dynamic struggle daily, to clean our own room before trying to fix the world, and to build character in the face of adversity. The spiritual traditions echo this call. The Bible invites us to walk in the light as He is in the light, John 1:7, highlighting that truth is not merely intellectual but a transformative force that illuminates every aspect of our being. It is through this illumination that we resist the darkness of stupidity, both within and around us. The responsibility of resisting stupidity is not solely on the shoulders of philosophers or leaders. It is a personal and collective duty. Each moment offers a choice, to accept easy falsehoods or to seek the harder path of truth. Each conversation, decision, and action can either reinforce blindness or foster clarity. This responsibility is heavy but empowering. It means we are co-creators of the future, shaping the world through our commitment to truth and wisdom. The terrifying theory of stupidity challenges us to reject passivity and embrace active engagement with ourselves, our communities, and the complex realities we face. To live courageously is to accept that we may stand alone at times, misunderstood by those who choose ignorance. But history remembers the brave, the thinkers, the truth-tellers, the seekers, who refused to let stupidity define their era. Their legacy reminds us that the light of wisdom, once kindled, can never be fully extinguished. As you reflect on this message, consider your role in this vital struggle. How will you resist the forces of stupidity in your daily life? How will you nurture wisdom in your thoughts, words, and actions? The journey is challenging, but it is the path to freedom, authenticity, and true transformation. If this message moved you, comment below with one way you plan to choose wisdom over ignorance in your life. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more deep reflections that challenge and inspire. Together, we can stand firm in truth and make a difference in a world too often clouded by blindness.